I want to see real issues. I want to see people emote. I want to see somebody take on Donald Trump.
I actually think ignore the other people and go right to the voter.
What's the one message I want to make sure the voters hear from me tonight?
And the inaugural speech that you might possibly give in January 20th, 2021, what is it that you're going to tell the American people in that speech?
I'm curious about Elizabeth Warren.
The beautiful campus of St. Anselm College, home of the Hawks.
The businessman, Tom Steyer.
Elizabeth Warren.
Sanders.
And businessman Andrew Yang. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's Democratic candidates for President of the United States. Socialism destroys nations. He's never going to let socialism destroy American health care.
Lie. We're all going to stand together to defeat Donald Trump. Appealing to working class people who...
Anyone else on the stage concerned about having a Democratic socialist at the top of the Democratic ticket?
There's a real threat that Donald Trump can get reelected. And that means we're going to have to appeal across the spectrum, moderates, progressives, and every group.
I want to give every American $1,000 a month. George, the entire capitalism-socialism dichotomy is completely out of date. And the fact is, when people were talking about these economic models, they did not foresee technology getting stronger, more powerful, capable of doing the work of thousands of humans in the blink of an eye. Instead of following GDP and corporate profits off a cliff, we should be measuring our own health and wellness, life expectancy, mental health and freedom from substance abuse, clean air and clean water, how our kids are doing. The way forward is a new human-centered version of capitalism that actually uses the markets to improve our families' lives.
Bernie and I have been friends for a long time. We have a lot of things in common. We have a lot of things that we differ on. We need to call it out for what it is. Corruption. We should be the party on the side of hardworking people.
I'm not interested in what Republicans are going to say. At a time like this would be to go up against that fundamentally new challenge by trying to fall back on the familiar.
Are you talking about Senator Sanders?
Yes.
For the working people of this country, not for the billionaire class.
Of his speech, do you think his health care plan can bring people together?
I think there's a better way.
We have to have Medicare for all. How much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it?
Spending some $50 trillion on health care over the next 10 years. That's the status quo, Joe. $500 billion a year trying to administer thousands and thousands of different plans.
We're going to restore all the cuts that they made in Obamacare.
It is not real, Bernie, because 2/3 of the Democrats in the Senate are not on your bill, and because it would kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance. What we need to do is build on it mental health care, addiction, long-term care. Those are the things that would make it better.
I will use march-in orders to reduce the cost of commonly used prescription drugs.
We need a perspective right now that will finally allow us to leave the politics of the past in the past.
Politics of the past, I think, were not all that bad. I don't know what about the past of Barack Obama and Joe Biden was so bad. Make sure you have someone who knows how to get things done and can lead the free world at the same time.
We have to be ready to turn the page.
My age.
Why are we the only major country on earth? The function of healthcare is healthcare for all, not huge profits for the insurance companies. This country belongs to all of us.
How are we going to beat Donald Trump? And he's going to beat us unless we can take him down on the economy, stupid.
Remind Americans that God does not belong to a political party.
He is a symptom of a disease that has been building up in our communities for years. Like the political parties have been playing you lose, I lose, you lose, I lose for years. And you know who's been losing this entire time? We have. That's why Ohio, a traditional swing state, is now so red that I'm told we're not even going to campaign there. We've automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs and counting. We're closing 30% of New Hampshire stores and malls, and Amazon, the force behind that, is literally paying zero in taxes, but we'll actually be able to move our communities forward.
One of your first orders of business will be to order your Justice Department to launch new investigations into the Trump administration.
I believe in an independent commission in our justice Justice Department that investigates crimes committed by our own government. If we are willing to take control of our government, return it to the people. This is about our government. This is about our democracy. This is about our future.
Countries that have thrown past presidents into jail have generally been developing countries. And unfortunately, that's a pattern that once you establish is very, very hard to break. Most Americans do not care about what a particular individual did so much as they care about their families, well-being, their community, their town. They want the president to be focused on that, and that's where our attention should be. We should not fall into a pattern that has been disastrous in other countries.
I'm the President of the United States. I have all of the power.
It doesn't matter anymore that he's a crook, and he's always been a crook, and he always will be a crook. And we have to beat him because he's incompetent and bad for the American people.
We as a party have to be completely united in doing whatever it takes.
I think we should, and at the same time, he should be pinning a medal on Vindman and not on Rush Limbaugh.
We actually had a vote late at night one time, Klobuchar-Sanders amendment, to bring in less.
What was Sanders Klobuchar?
No. It was not. It was not. Actually won big time with Republicans and independents. And I got the endorsements of the three major papers here in New Hampshire.
I got 25% of the Republican vote. There are many conservative Republicans, for example, who are concerned about civil liberties, the high cost of prescription drugs.
Soleimani was a bad actor.
No evidence that that made our country safer. Look, taking out a bad guy is not a good idea if you do not know what you were doing. It started with withdrawing us from the Iran nuclear deal that his own administration certified was working. This president has insulted the intelligence community, but they put their lives on the line.
We are alone now, alone in that region of the world.
Strengthen the State Department and our diplomatic capabilities.
Nobody sees a solution to this war. Nobody can describe what winning looks like. All they can describe is endless war. I want to hear the plan.
I was totally against the whole notion of nation building in Afghanistan. The only thing we should be doing is dealing with terrorism in that region.
What we have to do is be ready for the future.
We need NATO.
This view of the world that our response should be military is driven by our gigantic military complex, and it can only be solved with diplomacy and allies and interaction with other countries. So in fact, what we are listening to right here is a discussion of 20 years of failed military action and how we should continue spending $700 billion a year on defense when we spend $70 billion a year at the federal level on education.
I was part of every major initiative we've had relative to diplomacy.
They were lying through their teeth. We have to lead the entire world.
Incarceration should no longer be the response to drug possession.
If you are seeking treatment, you have resources to be able to pursue it. This is not a money problem fundamentally, this is a human problem, but money cannot be the obstacle. You know you're not going to be sent to jail. We have safe injection and safe consumption sites for you. If you have a family member who's struggling, you can refer them and know that they're not going to have criminal penalties as a result. If money's on one side in this country and people are on the other side, the money is winning. This is what we must change, and that's where I'll lead as president.
The only answer is treatment.
Gun policy.
We should ban the sale and distribution of assault weapons.
I introduced the first assault weapons ban.
We attacked the corruption in Washington.
We should not apply narrow litmus tests to appointees to the Supreme Court.
There's unenumerated rights coming from the 9th Amendment. A woman does have a right to choose.
3 out of every 4 people in America believe right now that the rule of Roe versus Wade should be the law.
Funding Planned Parenthood, for making sure women have access to contraceptions, to making sure that they have a right to choose.
The founders gave us the power to amend the Constitution.
Pass a constitutional amendment I introduced 25 years ago saying that only public money can be spent in elections, period.
I will never nominate any person to the Supreme Court who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade.
Everybody on this row feels exactly the same way about a woman's right to choose. Everybody on this row feels exactly the same way on gun control. We have to go win a huge victory this year. Who can pull together the Democratic Party? And let me say this, we have not said one word tonight about race.
How do you explain that increase in black arrests under your leadership?
And one of the strategies that our community adopted was to target when there were cases where there was gun violence and gang violence.
We need to rework our criminal justice system. We need race-conscious laws in education, in employment, in entrepreneurship.
With respect, you can't regulate away racism with a whole patchwork of laws that are race-specific. What we have to do is heed the writings of Martin Luther King, whose birthday we just celebrated. He said that capitalism forgets that life is social, and what he was championing was a guaranteed minimum income for all Americans of $1,000 a month or more that would end up reshaping our economy in communities of color, make it so that black net worth is not 10% of white net worth in this country, which is the most important number of them all. We can't regulate that away through any other means except by putting money directly into the hands of African Americans and Latinos and people of color to allow businesses to actually flourish and grow in those communities.
I am for reparations to African Americans in this country, and anyone who thinks that racism is a thing of the past and not an ongoing problem is not dealing with reality. One of the leaders of Joe Biden's South Carolina campaign made racist remarks about someone associated with our campaign. Joe, disavow Dick Harpootlian and what he had to say. It was wrong.
I'm asking you to join me and join in the support I have from the overwhelming number of the members of that Black Caucus. I have more support in South Carolina in the Black Caucus and the black community than anybody else.
We have a racist society from top to bottom. The system is broken, is racist. We invest in our young people in jobs and education. 200,000 people are in jail without having been convicted of anything.
That's right.
We got to end cash bail.
The house valued in the black neighborhood will be valued as worth less, making it difficult for you to accumulate wealth. We should triple the funding we have for at-risk schools.
No excuse for black women dying in childbirth 3 times the rate that white women are doing as well.
Systematic racism when it comes to voting. Stop the gerrymandering by setting up independent commissions in every single state.
So, you know, we realize there are 35 states in the United States of America that have come up with a total of 78 laws to restrict voting just in the last 5 years to try to keep African Americans from voting, and brown as well, black and brown people from voting.
I proposed a 2-cent wealth tax. That one law is going to help close the black-white wealth gap for people with student loans by about 20 points.
We should set up a commission on race and deal with race explicitly. Because everyone's saying we can't have rules that are different for different people, but in fact we're here because we had rules that are different for different people. Out of narrative comes policy. Let's figure out how to repair the damage so we can move forward together.
The median African American household net worth is projected to be 0 by 2053. It's something of an economic unnatural disaster. And who suffers most in a natural disaster? People of color, people with lower levels of capital and access to opportunity and education. And while I know we love to champion education here as Democrats, only 33% of Americans are going to attend college. We can prevent this tsunami from wiping out African American net worth unless we put straight cash into their hands. And it's not just them. It is truck drivers, it is retail clerks, it is call center workers, it is accountants, it is bookkeepers. We are in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, and it's going to hit black people the hardest. We have to stop nibbling at the edges and actually start solving the real problem.
The way we build it going forward is we have a grassroots movement funded from the grassroots up. That's the way I'm running this campaign.
One of my major focuses is going to be on passing that constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United.
We not only overturned Citizens United, we moved the public funding of elections. I don't have 40 billionaires, Pete, contributing to my campaign.
Donald Trump, according to news reports, and his allies raised $25 million today.
President Trump just signed the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. Both New Hampshire Senators Maggie Hassan and Senator Jean Shaheen supported this. They voted yes. Were the senators from New Hampshire wrong?
Yes. There is not one word in that trade agreement that deals with climate change.
There were some major improvements in this trade agreement.
This makes things somewhat better. I'll sign up for that.
Everybody wants to get into our market. And that's how we convince them that they've got to be right on climate, too.
If we start isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, we are going to hurt ourselves economically, and we are going to hurt our nation's security.
Child poverty.
George, we're in the midst of the most extreme winner-take-all economy in the history of our country. And unfortunately, that extremity is just going to reach unprecedented heights as technology is getting stronger, smarter, more capable all the time. And most of us are not. Most adults feel happy if we stayed about the same on any given day. So if we want to alleviate child poverty, we need to put money directly into the hands of families, particularly single parents. 40% of American children today are born to single moms. 90% of single parents are single moms. And right now, we have fallen into this trap where we have allowed the market to tell us what we are all worth. And what does the market value my wife Evelyn at, or stay-at-home parents around the country? 0. Caregivers taking care of ailing loved ones, like Carl Christensen in Iowa. 0. Volunteers and activists in our communities trying to do something positive. 0. Coaches and mentors helping our kids. 0. Most artists, sorry artists, but it's true. 0. Increasingly local journalists, which is wiping out our ability to have a functioning democracy because you can't vote on something if you actually don't have any news coverage. The mission in this campaign has to be for us to disentangle economic value and human value, say they are not the same things, and make this case to our fellow Americans that we each have intrinsic value as citizens, as human beings, and as owners and shareholders of the richest country in the history of the world.
Now we have a president who says the economy is fantastic because the Dow Jones is looking good. And I'm sure if you've got a building with your name on it close to Wall Street, then that really is the same thing as the economy to you. That is why we need to recognize that the time has arrived for a different kind of politics, to turn the page, leave the politics of the past in the past, and deliver a better future before it is too late.
Special education teacher. Best investment we can make as human beings is to invest in our children. And we've had enough of making rhetoric around this. Everyone says they love the kids. But here's the deal. It's time to come up with real plans to make that happen. I've talked before about a 2-cent wealth tax, but the whole idea behind it is we can do early childhood education and good quality child care. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in America. And we can stop exploiting the people, largely black and brown women who do this work, and raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in America. Put real money into our schools. Put real money into housing. Put real money into health care. Put real money into the future of our children. That's how we build the America of our best values.
Where a dad walked in one day and said, "We got to move. Don't have a job. We got to move to a different city." States Congress, as the poorest man in the United States Congress. The matter is that I've never focused on money for me. And I was a single dad for 5 years. It's not as hard as being a single mom, and I had help from my sisters in the audience and others. That's why I invest so much time and energy in preschool. That's why if I only have $1 to spend, I spend it equipping the child before they get into school in the early days than after. And we talk about all those kids out there that are going to be graduating. A great number of them aren't going to, as Mr. Yang said, aren't going on to college, although I think we should help with college. They're not going on to college. What they're going to do, they're going to be equipped to compete in the 21st century by training them for the new trades, the new opportunities, the new capabilities that are out there.
Is why we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, disproportionately high for the African-American community, by the way, is the same reason that we give massive trillion tax breaks to the rich and large corporations. Same reason that we give tens of billions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks to the fossil fuel industry, while half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. The same reason that we have 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. The same reason that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Same reason as to why we are paying, in some cases, 10 times more than other countries for prescription drugs. And that reason is that our priorities are determined by the 1% and by wealthy campaign contributors. Our priorities are determined by those who want to see the rich get richer and are turning their backs on the working families of this country.
But we did not lose hope. And there is a way. It's actually based on a National Academy of Science report, and I've used that to put together a plan to reduce child poverty in half in 10 years and eradicate it in a generation. But to get it done, we have to be able to reach those voters that we lost in this state and across the country. There's an old story of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and when he died, his body was put on a train and went up across America. And there was a guy standing by those tracks along with so many Americans, and he had his hat on his chest and he was sobbing. And a reporter said, "Sir, did you know the president?" And the guy says, "No, I didn't know the president, but he knew me. He knew me." And I will tell you this, there is a complete lack of empathy in this guy in the White House right now. And I will bring that to you. If you have trouble stretching your paycheck to pay for that rent, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you have trouble deciding if you're going to pay for your child care or your long-term care, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you have trouble figuring out if you're going to fill your refrigerator or fill your prescription drug, I know you, and I will fight for you. I do not have the biggest name up on this stage. I don't have the biggest bank account. I'm not a political newcomer with no record, but I have a record of fighting for people.
Republicans have a cruel plan. And their plan is pretty simple. It's to cut taxes on the richest Americans and the biggest corporations. And then they pay for it by cutting education for kids, by cutting health care across the board, by allowing corporations to pollute as much as they want, and then they try and break unions and the organized labor movement. It's very simple. That's what Mr. Trump's plan is, and it's true in every single red state. But we are not going to win by just criticizing Mr. Trump. So in fact, what we need to do is have a new conception, a new dream of America, dream it and make it happen. Imagine the mountain, and then we climb it together. We are in perilous times. I am asking for your vote. Let's rise together.
Candidates, thank you. Thanks for a great debate tonight. Thanks to our audience here at St. Anselm College. Thanks to our partners, WMUR and Apple News. And now I'd like...
I know we were talking as we were watching the debate, same thing that John said about Amy Klobuchar. That was an especially strong close as well.
Yeah, and so much of tonight's debate was really about that central question about age and experience. And she was really hammering her experience, arguing that it's not a bad thing necessarily to have a little bit of a Washington record. She took some very pointed attacks, I thought, against Pete Buttigieg, making some digs at his age, calling him a newcomer. At one point, she made a joke about how he was eager to turn the channel from impeachment because he wanted to go back and watch cartoons. That's not actually exactly how he phrased it, but that's where she took it. And I think she did make a forceful case, and she did break through, I think, in a way that she really hasn't before. Now, Joe Biden, to Cecilia's point, he had to bring it tonight. After that dismal fourth-place finish, he really had to step it up. And we did see him launching some fierce attacks at the beginning, going after Bernie Sanders on Medicare for all, going after Pete Buttigieg for what he argues is his inexperience. But then he seemed to fall back into that comfortable debate zone that he has, where he really relies on his resume a lot. And of course, that's the bulk of his campaign, is his experience. And he hammered that away over and over again. But look, his campaign needs a bit of a reset, and I'm just not sure if he could deliver on that tonight.
Vice President Biden, was that...
They are clearly enjoying this.
Right.
Andrew Yang there was jumping up and down for a while.
So Biden isn't expected to do well in New Hampshire. earlier that he has to do well in South Carolina, which has a larger black vote. Race didn't come up in this debate until about 90 minutes in, and it came up from Tom Steyer, who brought it up, and then they engaged. One thing I want to say about how I thought all of the candidates, when it came to the conversation about race, 90 minutes in, I thought in some ways all of them were tone deaf. Because so often when they discuss race, it is about the pathology of the black experience. It is about the black nightmare, not about the dreams of African Americans, because it came up in their conversation about criminal justice reform. I think that is a blind spot for them that will hurt them down the road.
And I do want to go back to Pete Buttigieg. He really was, and I know we've mentioned all this, he really was the one with the target on his back tonight. And let's listen to a few of those clips.
He's a mayor of a small city who has done some good things, but has not demonstrated he has the ability to, and we'll soon find out, to get a broad scope of support across the spectrum, including African Americans and Latinos.
It is much harder to lead and much harder to take those difficult positions, because I think this going after every single thing that people do because it's popular to say and makes you look like a cool newcomer.
We need people with experience. That's why I'm worried about Mayor Pete. You need to be able to go toe-to-toe with this guy and take him down on the debate stage, or we're going to lose.
So where does Pete Buttigieg end up after tonight? Pretty steady throughout.
Well, I mean, I got to say, he did go toe-to-toe with them. I mean, he got beat up by everybody on that stage, and he hit back. I thought his, he wasn't a perfect...
And he didn't take the bait, really.
No,
he just hit back.
It was not a perfect night for him. I thought his answer on the question of decriminalization of drugs, he seemed to waffle a little bit on that. The question from Lindsay on race, I thought he seemed a little bit uneasy on that. But in terms of the hits that he took from the other candidates, I thought he took them and hit back.
And the question of inexperience.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that I think the Democrats are really grappling with right now. We keep talking about this identity crisis that they're having, an ideological one over whether the Democrats want to be a moderate group party or they want to be a liberal party. Clearly tonight they're also grappling with this issue of a generational question. Amy Klobuchar said 59 is the new 38. She went right after age when it came to Pete Buttigieg. But Pete Buttigieg's answer to this, he clearly knew that this shot was going to be coming to him tonight. He said, readiness really is about judgment. It's not about tenure. You don't have to have all these years in Washington. We've got a president there now, he's saying, who has no experience in Washington, and their point is, look where we are as a country. But they've really got to decide who they want to be as a party in order to take on Donald Trump, because he's got a great economy right now.